What is up, y'all? Welcome back. Today I wanted to go over how the Utah Jazz have been playing over the past couple weeks and how they started as good as they possibly can going into this quote unquote gauntlet they've been going through right now. I kind of wanted to start with the Hornets. They beat the Hawks, but the Hawks were missing Trae Young and they just haven't been playing really well lately anyway. A lot of people don't realize it, but the Hornets are currently sixth in the standings in the East. And with the way Boston has been playing lately, maybe they're going to pass them soon. I mean, LaMelo Ball, you got Hayward, you got Terry Rozier showing up here. So they've been a pretty good team lately. I watched this game that they recently played a couple weeks back, and it was definitely a shootout. LaMelo is my personal Rookie of the Year pick, and just because him and Hayward have taken the Hornets out of NBA obscurity, to say it lightly, and put them firmly in the playoff chase in the East this year. And, it was the Jazz held them off for the most part. I think in the first quarter, the Hornets were leading for a bit. But with that being said, the Jazz took over the second half and dropped 138 points on them. And that's with Conley leaving in the second half. So after that, they flew to Indiana to versus the Pacers. It was definitely a grinded out type of game. I didn't watch all of it, but it was one of the more closer games in this stretch for the Jazz. Conley was out with hamstring tightness, and this game was actually a Sunday afternoon game after playing a back-to-back against Atlanta and Charlotte. So that in itself is pretty impressive, considering the constraints and how the NBA schedule works for sometimes. After that, we had the Jazz versus the Celtics. This was a TNT game, so it was national attention here. For the most part, it was back and forth, pretty close for the most part. Tatum was struggling early. Daniel Tice was actually helping out, hitting threes with Kemba, basically doing nothing for most of the game. Jaylen Brown is showing that he's not only just the most improved player in the league, but he's worthy of being an all-star starter in the East, in my opinion. But once it got to the fourth quarter, Gobert really locked down the paint. You got Bogey and Donovan hitting clutch shots, and Donovan actually had 36 points that game on TNT, just to kind of get back at Shaq, I bet. But anyway. Then after that, we had the Bucks and the Heat on a back-to-back. At this point, the way the Jazz are playing at such an elite level, they're going into these as heavy favorites in a lot of these games. And, with Giannis coming in, he showed up in the fourth, but for the vast majority of the game, he wasn't really as effective. I saw a lot of plays when they were running their offense through Brook Lopez, who is a good offensive player, but you shouldn't be running it strictly through him, even with, Drew Holiday being out that game. It was a handy win for the Jazz that night. And then the night after, the Heat showed up and they had like 40 points at halftime. And the Jazz were shooting like 10 for 40 from three-point range and still won easily by 20 points, I believe, which is just freaking ridiculous. And then tonight they are playing the Sixers. I heard Joel Embiid may not play this game, which would be unfortunate because I really do want to see them go at full strength without having injuries, bog it down or be talking points on Twitter for some people. But, if he doesn't play and the Jazz win, it's still another W. It still counts in the win column here, and every win in the West counts this season and every season. And then later in the week, they have a back-to-back against the Clippers, which is going to be a big test for this team. The Jazz already beat the Clippers, but to see them at this point, 20, 25, 30 games into the season, it's going to be interesting. And I believe one of the games is on ESPN also. So, yeah, it's pretty hard to deny what the Jazz have done as of this point. They're 22-5. At one point, they were 4-4, which is pretty freaking crazy. But you got to give them credit where credit is due. They've just been playing lights out. And even on nights where they aren't shooting very hot, they're still beating their opponents handily, which is pretty telling of a team that some people will claim is one-dimensional. So yeah, we will see how things are going here. Of course, we learned recently that Anthony Davis is not going to be playing in the game that they versed the Jazz in Utah, which is unfortunate. And, as of this point, I feel the Lakers are the biggest competition for the Jazz. You do have the Clippers, but as of this point, they have beat them, so it'll still be a competitive game between the Clippers and the Jazz, but the Lakers are the ones that they're really looking forward to. So either way, I mean, if the Jazz can win and beat these playoff teams without Conley, Hanley, I'm sure the Lakers can go in there and beat the Jazz. So we shall see. Well, anyway, thank you guys for listening. I'll be sure to come back with some Eastern Conference All-Star picks for you. Be sure to subscribe, and we'll talk to you guys soon.